All right, we're going to wind the clock way, way back, like 3,000 years, to ancient China. We're talking about one of its most important dynasties, the Western Zhou. And they came up with this really ingenious, but, as we'll see, ultimately flawed, system to rule a massive kingdom. So let's dive in. Okay, so just picture this for a second. You've done it. You've led this huge, successful rebellion, you've kicked out the old rulers, and now you're in charge of this massive territory. It's this incredible moment of triumph, right? But then, almost immediately, this giant question mark pops up. How on earth do you actually control all of it? Well, that is exactly the problem that King Wu of Zhou was staring down back in 1046 BCE. I mean, he just defeated the Shang Dynasty, which was a huge deal, but now he and his family had to figure out how to govern this sprawling, incredibly diverse, and probably pretty restless kingdom. And listen, this wasn't just some small headache. No, this was a fundamental, almost existential challenge to their brand new role. Let's just call it what it is, the conqueror's big problem. And here's just how big that problem was. I mean, we're talking about a vast territory filled with all these different groups of people who, let's be honest, were probably not too thrilled about their new bosses. And you gotta remember, this is ancient history. There are no phones, no internet, heck, not even a good highway system. You can't just send an email or pick up the phone. A central army, it just can't be everywhere at once. It was a total logistical nightmare. So, faced with this massive challenge, what do? Well, the Zhao couldn't just build a modern bureaucracy like we have today. So they leaned into the most powerful social technology they had, family. And what they came up with was, honestly, pretty clever. And this is it. The system they created is called fengjian. The basic idea is actually pretty simple, but it's really powerful. The king basically says, look, I can't rule that territory way over there by myself, so I'm going to grant this piece of land, it's called a fief, to you, my trusted brother, or you, my loyal general. In return, you run the place for me, you send me tribute, and you show up with your soldiers whenever I need you. Simple as that. You know, this quote just nails it. The Zhou kingdom was less a state and more a family franchise. Seriously, think about it like that. The king is the CEO, and he's handing out franchises, these territories, to his family members and top guys to manage. They all get to operate under the official Zhou brand, and in return, they owe loyalty and a cut of the profits back to head office. Okay, so how did this franchise model actually work in practice? What were the terms and conditions of the deal? You know, the fine print. Let's break down the rules of the system. The whole thing was built on this cycle of, well, obligation. It was a two-way street, for sure. The king gives out the land and the authority that goes with it. The local lord, the vassal, then pledges his personal loyalty, sends back tribute, goods, money, and, this is the big one, he provides soldiers for the king's army. But the king also had a job to do. He was expected to protect all his vassals from any outside attacks. And this really lays out the deal in the clearest terms. On one side, you have the king. He's providing the land, royal protection, and, the political legitimacy, the brand name. On the other side, you have the vassal lord. He provides the military aid, the annual tribute, and he handles all the day-to-day local administration. It was a partnership, right? Each side knew exactly what they had to do. Now, this is the really crucial point. This whole fengjian system, it wasn't just a political contract written on a piece of paper. It was personal. The glue holding the entire kingdom together was literally blood. The very first vassals were the king's brothers, his uncles, his closest allies. And this family bond was constantly being reinforced through all these elaborate rituals and ceremonies, all designed to remind everyone, hey, we are all part of one big, powerful family. But, and you knew there was a but coming, right? Here's the fatal flaw in any system that's built on personal loyalty. What happens when that personal connection just fades away? What happens when those family ties start to fray? This timeline just shows the problem so perfectly. Look, in the beginning, 1046 BCE, your vassals are your brothers and your uncles. Of course they're loyal. But fast forward a century or so, now the local lord is the great-grandson of that original guy. And the king, he's some distant cousin he's probably never even met. So the question becomes, why should I send my soldiers and my hard-earned money to some stranger? And as you can see, by 771 BCE, many of these so-called vassals were basically acting like independent rulers. And this chart, wow, it just shows you exactly what happened. It's a classic power shift. Over the centuries, you can see the royal authority just plummeting, while the power of the local vassals goes way, way up. Power just drained away from the center. As the king got weaker, those regional lords got stronger. They started building up their own armies, grabbing their own land, and they started acting less like franchise managers and a lot more like competing CEOs. The whole system just crumbled from the inside out. But here's the fascinating thing. Even though the Western Zhou's political system ultimately failed, its cultural and philosophical legacy was absolutely immense. In a way, its failure laid the foundation for the very idea of China as a unified empire. I mean, the Zhou left behind some of China's most powerful and long-lasting political ideas. They gave us the mandate of heaven, this incredible concept that our ruler's power isn't absolute. It's granted by a higher power, and you can lose it if you mess up. They also established the ideal of a unified Middle Kingdom, a goal that would shape Chinese history for literally thousands of years. And by spreading their family all over the place, they accidentally created a shared culture that helped glue the region together. So in a weird way, their political failure provided the critical lessons that all the successful empires after them learned from. And all this brings us to a final, much bigger question, right? The Zhou built their entire kingdom on the most powerful bond they knew, family. But over time, that bond just wasn't enough, and the whole system collapsed. It really makes you wonder, is any system that relies purely on personal loyalty and trust, instead of, impersonal laws and institutions, is it just doomed to fail as time goes on? It's a question that goes way beyond ancient China, that's for sure.